Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the video. Have you ever tried scaling the hell out of an ad and it just stops performing? I mean, you might be at a really low level of spend, only, a couple $100 a day or something like that. You try to kick it up and then, you get zucked and it just stops performing all of a sudden. There's no way it could be you, right? No, it's gotta be the multi-$100 billion ad channel. Couldn't possibly be your fault or the fact that your ad creatives just suck, okay? If that was the case, the lessons that we cover in today's video that make myself and my clients tremendous amounts of money are gonna be helpful to you if you do consider that it could be something that you can influence rather than just blaming it on the ad channel. So if you're new to the channel, welcome in. My name's Jeremy Haynes. All we do on this channel is talking about hitting $1 million months. We take lessons from the 40 different people that we've helped hit $1 million a month over the last 10 years as a marketing agency. The exclusive and elusive 0.1% of all business owners in America, according to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, hit 10 million a year, let alone the big 12 million to big $1 million months. Yeah, we just take all the lessons from those businesses and hand them down to you in little bite-sized, put you on game formats here on my YouTube channel. So welcome in. If you're new, I'd encourage you to subscribe and check out all my other videos after you get some game from this one. And if you're already a subscriber, welcome back. It's always a pleasure to have you. We got another banger for you here today. Without further ado, let's dive in. So for starters, you have to understand this concept, okay? Most people that advertise, that you get advice from, and really think about who you get advice from first of all, okay? This is really important to understand. Like in my most recent video I just did where I talked about a guy, a little worm turkey boy in Perth, Australia, who tried to literally steal and say that he originated my DSL deck sales letter strategy that my boy Josh Troy and I made together. He tried to straight up say he made it, okay? It's like, dude, there's personal brands who exist that I've had 3 of you guys since I came out with that video. One of you said you spent $12,000 with that guy to help implement it for you and it didn't get results. Another one of you said you spent $8,000 to get the guy to implement it. Another one of you said you bought something from the guy that was $8,000 that you later found out he upsold the people in one of his other funnels for $297. Like, that's a fucking copy and paste personal brand. No original thought, exclusively existing to be like an unethical money vacuum and just take money out of the economy and put it in his own pockets. How many of those types of personal brands exist? People who literally don't actually have the experience doing what they claim they teach, let alone what they claim they originate as thoughts and strategies and tactics for you to turn around and make money with. Think about that type of person that you might be learning from right now. On top of that, think about the people out there that you're learning from that are just like stupid hand-me-down beliefs, where they're spending like at most a couple grand a month, and they're giving you perspective on what you should do to advertise. Because like you're new to the game, you're trying to figure things out, so you go ask your buddy who literally spends fuck all on advertising and barely makes like tens of thousands of dollars a month. You're getting advice from that type of person. You're passively scrolling through like groups, that you have a bias are supposed to be full of experts, but in reality, it's those exact same 2 types of people. It's like that's a majority of the people that are out there teaching shit, okay? In comparison, your boy over here, we spend low millions of dollars a month on paid advertising between at most 15 different clients. And we make a fuckload of money for those different clients. We do raising capital. That means there's 8 million accredited investors in the United States. We had a guy the other day come through a lead form. He sold a company to Barclays for $1.6 billion. He came through one of our raising capital clients funnels, okay? We get people at a minimum that have hundreds of thousands of dollars that are looking to place that money. We have info product clients that are spending anywhere between hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. Some of them even just by themselves, like individually, can spend upwards of $1 million a month in ad spend, give or take the month. And they're flipping that into at a minimum in almost all instances, like 4 to 1, 6 to 1 ROI, okay? Killing it. Like our biggest info client does $5.5 million a month. Fucking insane. Service providers that have high ticket products and services, okay? And on top of that, I just really want you to understand, there's a difference between advice and counsel, okay? I learned this from one of my first mentors, a guy named Greg Reed. Greg said, advice is like calling your mom and asking her how to make $1 million if she doesn't know how to make a fucking $1 million and never has, okay? There's so many people on earth that are gonna give you advice, like the copy and paste personal brands that we just called out in one of our last videos for the DSL, okay? And all the other ones like I just talked about. Counsel is from when people who already have been there, done that, at a scaled level, likely well beyond the level that you're gonna try to operate at yourself, are gonna come along, hand down pieces of advice to you. Like take this as an example, right? If a guy tells you, hey, spending a couple $1 million a month, like here's some top lessons on how to actually scale the shit out of some ads. If you're just trying to spend like maybe $100,000 to $300,000 a month in paid ad spend to hit $1 million a month, it's like, well, that's great advice to learn from because you have to spend a fraction of what I'm talking about I have to spend for this exact same lesson to work. You see what I mean? So the very first thing I want to make sure I point out, just make sure you're actually learning from the right people. Most of you, when you're sitting there like trying to have certainty about what you're talking about for what you think you already know about paid advertising, comes from the 2 types of people that I just sit there and called out and said, why the fuck are you learning from people like that? Okay? You have have to be able to acknowledge that you got to drop specific lessons that just don't make sense, because all the things I'm about to talk about might contradict the dumbass lessons you've already learned that you try to claim as truth, okay? So let me give you a great example of that. And I see this all the time with some of our new inner circle members who are in that exact position where they're spending like tens of thousands of dollars a month and they're trying to scale to a couple $100,000 a month so they can hit $1 million a month in collected cash, and they're just failing to scale their ads. And it's because, for starters, they've never actually understood the ad channel. They've never understood how this shit works, okay? These are multi-hundred-billion-dollar companies. Give or take the specific times of year and likely just into the future, these are trillion-dollar companies. Like Facebook, as an example, has been worth $1 trillion in their market cap. Do you know how statistically improbable it is? Like, if it's a 0.1% probability to hit $10 million a year, what the fuck do you think the probability is to be in a market cap worth $1 trillion fucking dollars? Okay? It's like Google makes a majority of their income from their ad channels. Okay? TikTok makes damn near all their money from their ad channels and some affiliate commissions from their TikTok shop platforms now. But still, an absolute metric fuckload of all three of these different ad platforms in this example come from their paid advertising channel. You don't think they've figured it out? It's like they can have somebody who knows next to nothing go onto their platform, throw some of the most bullshit creatives ever at the platform to a shitty looking landing page, and still get that person to be able to make some money, okay? Now, here's something that you have to consider, and this is very important to understand. It's like, even if you can get an offer to like a couple $100,000 a month, dude, that is a fucking fart in the wind. It is so small and meaningless in the eyes of these companies, but to you, it might mean everything. So you therefore get this illusion of like, man, dude, I managed to scale my offer to a couple $100,000 a month. I'm fucking big shit popping and I know what I'm talking about. When in reality, again, every time you go to scale your ads, you fail because you don't actually know what the fuck you're doing. The ad platforms know what the fuck they're doing, and they take that shit set of ad creatives and landing pages that you've been feeding it, and they get it to work for you because that's how powerful and dominant their specific platform technology is, okay? Now, when you start to understand, and look, this is as an example, like, and I'm not sitting here pitching you, this is just some perspective, okay? In my master internet marketing class, I have 7 weeks of live classes. Each class is 3 to 5 hours long, okay? This video, I don't even know what it'll come out to in length. But my point is, like, you know, you're sitting here watching it. You think you're gonna learn every single thing there is to fucking know about an ad channel on YouTube for free? It's like, fuck no, you're not. You know, you're gonna take an investment into yourself eventually, and you're gonna take the time as well that's required outside of the money, and you're gonna invest in actually learning how it works. That is one of the most critical things that you can understand. But I will still put you on game, of course. Let me give you some tips. Okay, so for starters, they are really good. And by they, I mean the ad channels, okay? Let me just specify that. So the ad channels are really good at finding the right people for your specific offers, okay? I've talked about this in other videos, and it starts off with this fact that they have on average, okay, about 52,000 data points per user, okay? And I always make this joke whenever I bring this up. I'm like, hey, do you know 52,000 things about yourself? And of fucking course you don't. You couldn't guess 52,000 things about yourself. Probably couldn't even think 52,000 random fucking things, okay? 52,000, not just random fucking points either, like highly contextual points that they leverage in their advertising algorithm to dramatically increase the probability that your random shit you feed it in the ad channel actually gets in front of the right people and they get it to convert, okay? So what you have to understand is the way this works is like this spectrum, right? So let's use, like, broad targeting right now is very popular. So let's just use the example you're doing broad targeting, okay? And let's say that you're targeting a country that has upwards of like 100 million people that you could potentially get in front of, okay? There's a good chance, you know, that upwards of 90+ million of these people are totally worthless for your specific offer. Like, they don't even stand a chance at ever converting on what you do. And, you know, Facebook knows that, Google knows that, TikTok knows that, but then you've got, you know, this other little sliver. Like, now that we're down to 10%, let's call it 90% of that 10% is, again, something that just you would never ever find a successful conversion with. Okay, so right away, it's like out of 100 million people total, well, we have 90 million that would just never convert. Okay, we have 9 million that technically can be deemed into those 4 different categories. Those 4 different categories, we've talked about this before. This is the stadium selling logic from Chet Holmes from his book, The Ultimate Selling Machine. And I've placed this inside of several videos, okay, and I really want you to understand this. At any given time, there's that 3 to 4% of people that you want to consider in market, okay? And in market means like these are the people who actively identify as, I'm a buyer for what that person sells. Okay? okay? Simply put, they want to give you money because they're already sold. Like they don't need sold, they're already sold, okay? And then you have these other 3 little categories here. This is a 30 percentile category that we call the needs convinced category. And the needs convinced category, again, this can be a great audience that you can tap into, but it requires you to communicate completely differently than you would to an in-market demographic. And a big mistake, and we've talked about this in other videos, but I'll reiterate it here just because we're talking about it, needs convinced demographics is a huge mistake to target and go after first. A needs convinced demographic is meant to lean into when you're scaling and you've officially run out of in-market customers to actively go after and convert. In-market customers are always more profitable than needs convinced demographic. Needs convinced demographic customers are less profitable, but still profitable. But again, it's like a scaling tack, not something you just lean into right away. Then you got this next 30%. This next 30% is tricky. These are people who we want to consider mass market, okay? Mass market is a demographic of people that are probable to buy, but I mean, it's gonna eat into your profitability a lot. Like whenever I have to get to the point, and this is a rare instance, by the way, where I have to get to the point of doing mass marketing for a client, I'm spending, as an example, like 500 grand to make like $1 million. Like a 2-to-1 ROAS at scale erodes your profitability if and when you have to get to the point where you do mass marketing. It's where you're taking people who don't actively identify in any way, shape, or form as a potential buyer of yours, and you end up converting them into a buyer because you have to. You ran out of the needs convinced demographic and you've absolutely run out of the in-market demographic too. And then up here, you got this other percentage of people which are just never gonna buy, okay? These people, no matter what, they're not even in market, okay? They're never, ever gonna buy. So you don't even worry about these folks, okay? And this is the logic that Chet Holmes talks about in his Ultimate Selling Machine book. Now, my point is, we always wanna go after the in-market demographic first, okay? Let's just look at the previous lesson I was articulating to you and tie these two together now. When you specifically focus on broad targeting as an example, and you don't do any interest stack, you don't like upload lists or like have a warm audience to retarget or really have any kind of data to leverage to convert people, what you're gonna do is you're technically and most probable to be communicating to that needs convinced demographic. Now, here's what the ad channels are really good at. And this is the part that you generally fail to understand, okay? So you throw the most bullshit ad creatives ever at the ad platforms because you're awful at advertising, but you think you're good because you got an offer to a couple $100K a month and you're working with trillion-dollar companies who have insane technology. It's like alien level technology that they're allowing you to utilize, and it gives you this illusion that like you're a good advertiser. Dude, when you're actually a good advertiser, like you understand all this thoroughly, like the back of your fucking hand, okay? Now, here's my point. Not to sit here and act like I'm disrespecting you or anything. That's not my point. I'm trying to give you some perspective, okay? When you do broad targeting, in this particular case, like the reality of the situation that I'm trying to give to you here is that you likely have about 1 million folks that you actively have a chance with that technically fit into these 2 demographics, okay? Now, out of those 1 million people, there are literally, without exaggeration, probably at most about 3,000 to 5,000 of them that you could consider like in market for what you do, that are ready to buy what you've got, that are like, they're gonna see your ad, they're gonna convert, okay? At your initial test budgets that you're gonna throw at it, that's who the ad platforms are gonna bias towards first. They're always gonna bias towards those people. That's how it works. Versus once you get out of that specific demographic and you look at the other large quantity of people that you're gonna target, the other, in this case, 995,000 fuckers that you're gonna get in front of, okay? In this particular case, when you start to scale is where things become problematic because you shift from hitting this 3,000 to 5,000 people initially that are converting and that are probable customers that already identifies like, dude, I'm a buyer for this guy's stuff. And then you switch unknowingly. And this is the big thing that you have to understand. Like when you just start to scale, you start to switch, okay? So it starts to go from this one pocket of the 3 to 4% into the needs convinced demographic. And you don't know that because again, you're uneducated. You haven't taken the time to invest into yourself to actually understand how the ad platforms that you're trying to make $1 million a month on work. You've instead just invested into fucking random agencies that have absolutely fucking hosed you, okay? And you've gotten to the point where you're jaded enough to hire in-house staff and like you still don't understand the real problem. It's like you've taken the time in life to get really good at things like sales because you know sales is a cornerstone skill set of being a great business owner because you consider all things sales, right? But you haven't actually taken the time, which is so fucking stupid by the way, to actually learn marketing, which is essentially sales. I consider myself a salesperson too. I just do it on the internet with lessons like this because all these lessons that I'm talking to you about, that I hand down to you in damn near every one of these videos, they're essentially just sales lessons, okay? But they're applied in ways where I tie in the knowledge and information of the ad channels because I am a salesperson at scale, okay? You're a good salesperson on like a one-to-one level or a group level or maybe even in an event setting. That's probably the most like scale you've had with your sales skills. Dude, I have to communicate to literally millions of fucking people a day and I have to get them to convert and become sales. You see what I mean? So it's like all you're doing here is you're taking the same lessons of sales and you're amplifying them. That's what you got to do. And to be very direct with you, you've got to invest into yourself. You got to spend the time and you gotta spend the money to invest into yourself to figure out how this shit actually works. Because every time you try to go from that little baby budget of whatever, a couple $100 a day, and you try to finally start kicking it up and scaling more, and let's just say you double it and you go to $1,000 a day, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, like the fucking ad channel sucks, dude. Like my results are all of a sudden shit, you know? Every single time I ever try to fucking punch the gas, it just doesn't work, man. Doesn't work. These ad channels suck. It's like, no, dude, you suck. And again, you gotta invest the time and effort. You gotta invest the time, effort, and the money in order to actually figure this shit out. My inner circle students run fucking laps around people. And they obviously start just like you, by the way. Like they're no different. They come in just like you and they have those same types of gripes. And then they figure it out because they spend the time, money, and effort to learn what it takes to actually get these things to work at scale and never encounter that problem again. Twice a month one-on-one calls, weekly group calls. We have quarterly in-person masterminds right here in person in Miami, Florida. We stream them, we record them. You get access to everything that we've historically ever done. You get a group chat full of rich people trying to get a hell of a lot richer, where you can ask questions, by the way, to people like me and to people just like how you used to be that already overcame it, that can also share perspective. And there's like fucking infinite resources in there is how it feels. Anytime somebody asks a question, it's like SOP, video. There's always something that we can throw at people in order to help them in those moments of crises when they have situations like this occur, okay? But back to my point, when you go to scale and it fails, okay, it's because your ad creatives are not built for the demographic that it switches to, okay? I'm gonna visualize this in a graph so you can understand it a little better. So if this represents time and this represents result potential, okay? Let me show you how this works. When you first launch a campaign, you got this window right here, okay? And this specific window, this is like the easiest it's ever gonna be. This is the most probable window for when it's gonna get you the results that you're after, okay? So once you launch a campaign, it's like, boom, you should be printing. Like you should get the best result. You ideally should be getting the most qualified people through the funnel, you know? You ideally should be getting what it is you're optimizing your campaign for and doing well, okay? And yes, there's like varying levels of how much you can spend, give or take the market you're in, before you're gonna experience this shift from in-market to the needs-convinced demographic. And it's important to note, like the messaging you use, how you communicate, the funnels you use, the pain points you try to leverage, the hooks you try to leverage, all these things in itself can keep you in an in-market demographic and make it so it never switches, or it can just start off right away with shit results because you're communicating to a needs-convinced or maybe even a mass market demographic, or just talking about things that any demographic in that stadium logic that I provided to you, none of them identify with because you're that bad at communicating to your demographic. Because again, you don't know how to advertise. So ideally, okay, I'm talking to the person right here who has somewhat of a skill where you get it to a couple $100 or maybe even like low couple $1,000s a day, and then it just randomly switches. Okay, well, what happens? Why does that happen? Okay, so here's what occurs next. So this second window, this specific phase in particular, this is where a lot of probabilities either start to play in your favor or against you. This is when a lot of those switches that you keep hearing me talk about can occur. So allow me to break this down. In this first window right here, this is when you're accumulating pixel data. This is when you're conditioning who the campaigns can go after first. There's an illusion, like a myth, by the way. It's an old school piece of advice where advertisers used to say, oh, well, it takes like hundreds of conversions or 50 conversions before a pixel will start to bias towards who it goes after. No, the fuck it doesn't. That's so wrong. It's not even fucking close to true, okay? Like I have a buddy right now, we just launched some test ads for him for his sales agency, my buddy Josh Troy. And Josh has audience demographic he's going after for this specific set of ads that I'm talking to you about, where he's trying to communicate to like info product coaching businesses. And in this specific set of ads, it's like the ads talk to that demographic, the targeting is geared towards that demographic, the landing page is geared towards that demographic. Well, one of the first conversions, like literally one of the first people on the pixel that counted as a conversion, coincidentally was a raising capital client. It was a big PE company that just got targeted by Josh's ads, or maybe somebody in the info space shared it to the guy. We don't know how it reached him, because again, none of the targeting was geared towards this. Either way though, this PE company ended up being a great potential deal, first of all, but second of all, the next 4 people that came in. So literally the first one came in, and then 2, 3, 4, 5. The next 4 people that came in, raising capital, raising capital, raising capital, raising capital. It doesn't take fucking hundreds, let alone 50 fucking people to hit a pixel before it starts to bias towards who it goes after next. It takes literally one. You see what I mean? One unqualified person hitting your pixel can wildly deter the success and the probability of success in the following stages of the campaign cycle. Got to understand that, okay? So if in that first phase specifically, I'm getting qualified people through, I'm following best practices for pixel conditioning, I am in a position where I'm successfully getting the right folks through that campaign, okay? And I'm now ready to start scaling. I may have even pushed up the budget a little bit, because you also got to understand signal, right? When things are going well, I can't pick up the phone and call Facebook. Hey, Facebook, really love what's going on, man. Keep it up. It's like, no, dude, you have to understand how the fuck to communicate to this thing, this massive technological alien tech that it's got. You got to be able to know how to signal to it, okay? Budget increases, turning shit on and off, decreasing budgets, randomly swapping shit in and out. Those are all signals, okay? So a good signal you can send to it would be increasing the budget as an example. So you start feeding it a little more budget as it gets more of the right folks through, okay? Then you enter phase 2. So as your campaign starts to go through phase 2, the next thing starts to occur. It either leans into the existing audience that you've already got, and or it runs out of people in that existing audience. So even if you've followed all the best practices, even if you got the right people through, even if, again, you've leveraged pixel conditioning best practices and you're in a position where only the right people have hit that pixel, and again, you have just gotten to this point where you think you've done everything right, simply put, and you start to scale, and then again, you still see this issue occur where like now randomly you're getting into different pockets of people that are less qualified, and it's just not working as well, and your campaign statistics start to go out of whack, like your cost per result starts to go up. Again, is it the ad platform's fault? No, it's fucking your fault, because you got to understand why that occurred, okay? The audience size, remember what I talked about with this audience size. Even if you do 100 fucking million people, it doesn't actually target 100 million people, dude, okay? It targets the people that it deems are the most probable to convert on what you've got, and that's it. That's all it goes after. So if you've got some little niche hook that you've used, okay, and now this is the whole point of why I'm trying to make this video, by the way, is you got to understand hooks, okay? So if you've seen my videos before, I've talked about this, where I talk about these things called minority hooks, okay? And minority hooks are like all of these things that you see here, okay? These are the minority hooks, and minority hooks are like tiny little fucking reasons that people are going to be responsive to your ads. These are things that the broad market as a whole that could identify as buyers for your offer or could be in market. Well, minority hooks are like what a very small fraction of the total audience in itself would identify as a buying motive, okay? Now, this is where most of you fail, is you leverage minority hooks, which look, when you're at a couple $100 a day, okay, you can get away with doing, because there's probably a couple $100 a day worth of people in your minority hook. It's like if I target the sales industry, which is like 1 out of every 8 people on earth are in sales. If I target real estate, it's like same thing, massive fucking industry. If I target like investments as a category, the financial services sector, it's like, again, massive fucking categories, okay? I could probably get away with spending a couple $1,000s a day inside of those niches before my minority hooks gas out and they don't fucking work anymore, okay? The game of advertising is to find the majority hook, okay? Now, just to be extremely clear with you, I get it, okay? As human beings, we do not want to consistently exert effort again and again and again and again. In an ideal scenario, we could kick back, conserve our energy, be somewhat lazy, and not have to recreate ads as frequently as what I'm about to tell you, you probably need to be doing it, okay? However, the reality of the situation is, until you actually find the majority hook, you have to consistently test new ad creatives. You have to go out there and film new ads. You have to go out there and make new image ads. You have to go out there and like actively put intentional thought into figuring out what the majority hook is for your specific demographic of in-market customers. And it's very important to take note of what I just said. Don't think with the majority hook for your needs convinced demographics until you reach that point of scale. Don't think with the majority hook for the mass market demographics until you reach that level of scale. Only think with the majority hook for the in-market demographics. That, my friend, is where you have the highest probability to milk the shit out of your conversions for a long, sustainable time and really get a strong ROI while doing it. You have to understand, right? The majority hook is what more than half of your total demographic of in-market customers, needs convinced customers eventually, and mass market customers beyond that respond to most. I want to be very clear when I say this, okay? This level of information is literally what create businesses that are at scale versus what fucking snuffs businesses out that get to a couple $100,000 a month and then cap out, okay? They fail to understand. Like, yeah, sometimes it's an offer thing. Sometimes it's a you got the wrong people in the team thing, okay? Sometimes, like, you know, there's just different variables, like, you know, mass scaled events that are happening that are kind of holding things back. But almost every instance that I've seen in terms of like what you're most in control of is you've just never found the majority hook. Like, you found a hook. This is another thing that happens that like keeps businesses stalled. Dude, one of my inner circle members is an example. When they first came to me, they were stuck at $300K a month for 3 years in a row. 3 years in a row, $300K a month. Why? Well, I mean, look, at the end of the day, they did a good job at finding a secondary hook, you know? They did a good job at even tapping into a few of these little minority hooks, but they never found the majority hook. So when they first came in, I just did a simple exercise with them where we went through a practice together to extract the majority hook from his business from his customer's perspective, from his team's perspective, from his perspective. And we took all three of these different areas where we looked at what the majority hook could be. We just started developing ad creatives around all the different ideas. Because that's the thing. It's like you don't technically know what the majority hook is until you find it. When you find it, it's like the best click-through rate you've ever had, the best ROI you've ever had, the most consistent scaling. Like it feels like it just never fucking ends every time you increase the budget. Doesn't feel like there's a ceiling in sight, okay? You're just like looking up at the stars when you find the majority hook. These hooks rip, okay? I'm not gonna sit here and do that exercise with you, by the way. You're on YouTube watching this shit for free. Join into my Inner Circle program. We could do it on a one-on-one call together, twice a month if you want to. We could do it on a weekly group call where you can request the topic just like this. We'll do it in front of everybody together with your business as an example. We'll do it at a mastermind if you want to, where we do 4 times a year. We do it in January, April, July, and October, right here in Miami, Florida. On top of that, we got a group chat. You can ask anytime. I'll send you all the resources for recorded calls, conversations, and SOPs on how to develop your majority hook, okay? You gotta join into the Inner Circle if you wanna go through that best practices guide. I'm not gonna give that to you here for free on YouTube, but I will tell you that that's what you need to do, okay? That, my friend, is what makes all the fucking difference, is you finding the majority hook. As soon as you find the majority hook, game over. You will never, ever deal with a situation again where you're trying to scale and it fucking taps out. It just won't happen because that's how majority hooks work, okay? Again, I hope that you get a lot of value from what we just talked about here today, and I hope that you stop learning from like random copy and paste personal brands and taking advice from people that just never fucking been there, done that. Makes no sense to me, some of the people you guys give money to out there and pay attention to. But anyway, I digress. Hope you enjoyed the video. Go watch some of my other videos on my channel, all dedicated to helping you hit $1 million months. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and thank you so much for being here. Go out there and get richer. Talk soon.